Welcome back to episode 6 of Reading for Fun. As you guys know, I'm trying to fill up my bookshelf. I started with the King Killer Chronicles. After that, I did the first trilogy of the Red Rising Saga. And after I finished that, I was like, maybe I should start a new series, maybe pick up a standalone. What I ended up doing, I read IronGold. So let's get into it. I'm going to put this up here. For those of you that don't know, 10 years after the original trilogy ended, the series picks back up with IronGold. Now, this is going to have spoilers. I just finished this yesterday, so I'm excited to dive into it. Now, I can see how IronGold is a lot like Red Rising in the original trilogy, in the sense that it doesn't quite have the pacing that Golden Sun or Morningstar had. There's a lot going on, and it ends with a big setup for what's coming next in Dark Age. Now, that's kind of the grand overlook of it, but to dive into what I want to talk about first, it's the multiple POVs. So, as you guys can see, this is actually the first book I've read since starting this channel, since starting to read for fun, of a book with multiple POVs. The original trilogy just had Darrow. This has Darrow, Lysander, Ephraim, and Lyria. And it's weird to say that out of the four, I would say Darrow was the one that I was least interested in out of the four. I know that's not what a lot of people think. That's just how I feel. The easiest way to explain the Darrow POV is in the first trilogy, if you're one of those people that were like, hey, I want Darrow to have some consequences for how he acts and the way he just tells everybody it's my way or the highway. Well, this book is for you. This book is filled with Darrow making mistakes, Darrow not listening to friends like Severo or his son or his wife, and doing what he thinks is best, and it ends up costing him to the point where the book ends with him basically saying, "Hey, you know what? I already screwed everything up. I might as well go back and do things the way that I know how to do it, and that is being the Reaper, not being Darrow." So Darrow's POV is how the book ends, and it sets you up for what is likely going to be a really intense book in Dark Age. But for this particular book, it was the POV that I was least interested in, just because it seemed like what happened in Darrow in this book is like how the first half of Red Rising was, but the entire book. And that makes sense, right? Because in Red Rising, it's only his POV, so you're able to cram in a lot more information about him. Where with this book and three other POVs, you didn't really get as much Darrow time, and the time that you did get with him wasn't what readers were accustomed to in Golden Sun and Morningstar. And so it was just a little bit different. But with all that being said, he's the guy I'm most excited for in Dark Age based how the book ended. So that's Darrow. Not very exciting in this book, but really looking forward to the next book. In terms of the other three, I would say my favorite, I would say Lyria was definitely emotionally a lot, specifically with how her POV started. And, in typical Pierce Brown fashion, the first couple chapters, you're learning about her family, and if you're learning about her family, that means it's going to get taken away from her. Similar to, Darrow and EO, and that's exactly what happened. And so emotionally, you already feel terrible for Lyria, and you kind of see, hey, this is what it's like being a red now 10 years later if you're not Darrow, and it's awful. I would say there's parts where I kind of think, hey, you maybe spend a little bit more time with Lyria than needed or than expected. But looking back, I really liked how, her POV and Ephraim's POV intertwine, and they end up, connecting. And that was the reason why you need to know both of them to begin with. And so I understand where Pierce Brown was going with it, and I enjoyed her POV. But I would say it started off as being like very emotional and very connected with her. And then there was a bit of a part in the middle where I wasn't quite as interested. And then it ended with, like her talking to Mustang, or her talking to Mustang, and that whole conversation of opening up, like just like two mothers opening up. I like that part too. So really strong, a little dull for me, and then finished really strong with Lyria. Ephraim, on the other hand, he he was he's a bit of annoying, right? The way he treated Volga was very frustrating throughout this entire book. Uh, I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely loved Volga. I kind of wish we had more of her, to be honest. And the whole time, you're just like, Ephraim, I get that you're miserable. I get that you're depressed. You have every right to be. You know, your your fiance died because of all of this, but like that doesn't give you the right to be an asshole to everybody else. You know, and so just the way that he treated Volga, I don't know, it bothered me. Uh, Again, just like with Lyria, the way this book ended with Ephraim and him being like, "Hey, yeah, maybe I am miserable, but maybe these kids shouldn't have to deal with the repercussions of me being miserable," and him trying to fix that. That was, that was cool to see. I like the way it wrapped up with him as well. But similar to Lyria, just the middle with him, I was kind of annoyed with, but it was worse with him than it was with Lyria. So I would say it would be Lyria second, Ephraim third, Darrow fourth, and then for me, I absolutely loved every chapter with Lysander and Cassius or Cassius. Um, I When I read Lysander, it kind of reminds me of Red Rising Darrow. He's contemplating what he's doing is right or wrong, whether or not he's being honorable or if he's taking things too far, just like Darrow did. With that being said, he's still ultimately going to do things the way he thinks it needs to be done because he is very steadfast in the thought process of, hey, what I know is right. There's a part of the book where he even says, like, golds are superior humans, and I am a superior human, but I don't want to have slaves. I want to be like a shepherd, right? So it's my job to take care of these other classes and put them in their rightful places and make sure that they're being treated, you know, that they have a better life because they have the pleasure of being in a world with golds like myself. So where you have Darrow that's trying to take down the golds, you have Lysander, who's now you can already tell he's going to be going after Darrow, and there's going to be an ultimate crossing between the two of them. But they both have their reasons for it, and they clearly both feel justified for how they feel. And I don't know. I just really liked how when I was reading Lysander, I felt like I was reading a young Darrow going through the same things that he went through, obviously with different ultimate goals at the end, but just the way like these two young men or boys essentially think that what they believe in is right, and now it's just upon them to get everybody else to agree with that. In terms of Cassius, uh, the last scene with him was the highlight of the entire book for me. It was absolutely cinema reading him take everybody on one by one while he's slowly dying. Now, I'm gonna say, I think that there's no way that he's actually dead, right? I'll find out in Dark Age, but with the way Red Rising works, unless you see, the person actually die right in front of you, like a Ragnar, like an EO, uh, you just can't believe that that's the way it's going to be. Similar to when Darrow and Severo are told that their kids have been captured and they're probably already gone at this point. It's like, hey guys, if the bad guy's telling you that, if the asteroid's telling you that, you don't have to actually believe him, right? Like, of course he's gonna go out saying as many terrible things as he can to throw you off your scent. And so like when they just automatically were like, yeah, if the asteroid says that my kids are dead, then they probably are. I kind of just want to be like, guys, come on, let's get some confirmation before we go straight to that. That's how I feel with Cassius. It's like until I know for a fact that he's dead, he's not actually dead, and I have to see it to believe it. So, but that scene in general was absolutely incredible. I completely enjoyed it. I thought it was amazing. And moving forward, between the four books so far, I would probably say it's definitely Golden Sun, Morning Star, and then I think this might be a little controversial, but I would actually have Red Rising third and then Iron Gold. I really liked Red Rising, mainly just because it was my first chance. It was my first time meeting Darrow, right? It was my first time meeting Mustang, first time meeting Severo. And so there is something to that where it's like, hey, it's the first book of the trilogy. I get to meet all the characters for the first time. So I'm going to put that above Iron Gold, which I feel is very similar to Red Rising, just with characters that I already know. Now, if Dark Age is to Iron Gold what Golden Sun is to Red Rising, then this book was absolutely worth it. In terms of if I would recommend it to somebody, I don't understand. I hear it all the time when people read the first trilogy of Red Rising and they're like, hey, I got everything I need out of that. Like, I don't need anything else. That makes no sense to me. The second I was done with Morning Star, I picked up Iron Gold. So at this point, if you like the series as much as I do, I don't have to recommend these books to you because you're going to read Dark Age, you're going to read Lightbringer, and it's like anything else that Pierce Brown writes, they're going to read it. So, with all that being said, I give you my rankings. If out of like a 5 star, I'd probably give this like a 4 out of 5, just because I feel like it was a bit of a setup book, but I enjoyed the multiple POVs and it ended it in a way where I want to immediately pick up the next book. So, there you go, guys. We're officially 6 books into this series. Looking forward to Dark Age. These are big books, so I'm trying to get through them as quickly as I can. In the comment section, please help me with my TBR. What do I need to be reading next? What did you think about Iron Gold? And out of these 4 books, how would you rank them? Would you rank them the same as me? Would you have Red Rising last? Or are you going completely off the wall? So let me know. In the meantime, I'll see you next week with the Dark Age update. And please, if you're not already reading for fun, do it. See you guys next week.